started recording. Yep. Hello, Dr. Ginger. This is our Mythbuster presentation, and my name is Maya Brown, and this is my peer,
Cynthia Torre.
And we are debunking how sugar makes kids hyperactive.
So to start with the origin of where this myth came from, according to WebMD, this myth particularly gained popularity in 1973 with Benjamin Feingold's diet plan by eliminating additives in foods. However, this diet plan did not include sugar, but it led parents to scrutinizing it anyway by association. The goal of Feingold's diet plan was to eliminate artificial colors, flavors, and preservatives, but again, sugar was not included in the original diet plan, but parents associated it anyway. And sugar was often linked with high energy environments such as birthday parties and holidays, and this could be one of the main reasons why parents associate it with this specific diet plan.
And when it comes to what the important science says, that first relates to how my first bullet point will teach you. I was shocked when scientists literally tricked parents and kids into thinking they had sugar, and I quote, hyper behavior still showed up. So the second bullet point relates to how it's kind of like when you think your coffee's decaf, but still, and I quote, feel awake because your brain's been convinced. So sugar is pulling the same Jedi mind trick on parents. In summation, the final bullet point relates to how that 1995 review was basically the scientific mic drop, as 23 studies, about 100 of kids, and not a single sugar-fueled zoomy insight.
So now on to why this myth still persists. A 1994 study shows that parental expectations can be biased of children's behaviors. So when they see kids in a hyper environment and with a lot of candy around or some cupcakes and cake, they'll think that the children are being hyperactive because of the sugar in these candies and all these sugary treats, when really it could just be the environment that they're in, hence like a birthday party. In terms of like Sugar Rush are embedded in pop culture, cartoons, and movies, reinforcing this myth without any scientific backing. For example, in the movie like Wreck-It Ralph, there's a whole section of the movie dedicated to these kids in like the sugar world, and these kids are seen to be more hyperactive than the ones that aren't. And some research shows that sugar may affect attention span or adrenaline levels, which can also lead to the public's confusion and associating it with also being hyperactive when that's not the case.
So, picture it. Balloons, cakes, cousins, and chaos. Yeah, no wonder kids go bananas at parties. However, and the first bullet point will vitally teach you that it's not the frosting, but rather the fun overload, importantly. Then the second bullet point relates to how kids who stay up late or binge on screens can look just as bouncy as the same kids at a candy buffet. And that's a biological cause and not a dietary one. In summation, the final third bullet point relates to how real hyperactivity has to do with how dopamine and impulse control circuits develop, whereas brownies don't rewire brains, but chronic sleep loss or stress might.
So now on to some advice for parents. Sugar doesn't actually cause hyperactivity according to decades of research and controlled studies. And parents should also recognize that the excitement from these events, not sugar, is often the real cause of hyperactivity. Kids usually love to just have fun and be with their friends, so them being hyperactive that way is not because of the sugar. So, and also avoid assuming sugar is the cause for when children act out. They should also examine the context and the environment. And parents should also use moments of high energy to discuss emotions, excitement, and self regulation just to see what's going on with the kid.
And our final important takeaways first involves how next time a kid's bouncing off the walls, don't blame the cupcakes, blame the bouncy castle. Because the science says sugar is guilty of cavities, not chaos. Then the second bullet point on our final takeaway slide relates to how I learned and my peer, we overall learned sugar can mess with the brain over time, but that's more about memory and impulse control, not wild energy spurts too. In summary, learning science proves sugar isn't a hyperactive villain, but rather it's just a sweet scapegoat for childhood chaos, interestingly. And when it comes to our references, Cynthia will start with why we chose these references and what exactly her reference is.
So I chose references 1 through 3, and the first two are lay media ones, and the third one that I picked is one of our scientific ones.
And then the fourth and fifth reference that I found for our important presentation involves two scientific sources to make sure we have lay media sources, but also those scientific sources as well. Let's see, do we need to save it? Just making sure we can upload this video to YouTube.